All right, how's everyone doing today? Yeah, good morning, everyone. So yeah, how are you guys feeling about React? Any questions or comments? So for anyone who's kind of a little behind on the lectures, it would be great if you could let us know in the chat up to which day or which lab did you cover, just for an idea. I mean, so the idea of if you want to skip React and keep doing your assignments, eventually you will have to get done with this, but the I will kind of leave the choice to you if you wanna get your assignments done, then start with React, whichever way you feel like it's gonna be easier for you to learn. So Navid says lecture behind. Yeah, I mean the lecture videos are definitely gonna be there. So if you ever need to refer back to it, or if you have any confusions, you can definitely check that out. And we're also here for labs and office hours. We are happy to help then as well. Kristen says, I need to start to develop something in React for deep understanding. Yeah, so this is something that I will say. We are doing our own projects in front of you, like small note, for example, the Notes app is an example. We are doing small projects in front of you guys, but it's also important to kind of do it on your own as well, because the only way to learn is doing something on your own. That way you can figure out ways that work for you better than others. For example, we kind of give you a very generalized way of coding. Everyone, they have their different ways of coding, right? So this is something that with practice comes up, and in future it helps a lot too. So yeah, practice is key. So for today, this concept's nothing new. We've already seen it in our project, but I feel like a more in-depth example would be more beneficial for you guys when it comes to this particular topic. So the topic I am talking about is the relationship between parent components and child components and how they interact with each other. So this is a very big part of, a very important part of React, which I feel like everyone should understand properly. All right. Yeah, I'm just waiting a little for everyone to join. But so far, based on what we've seen in lectures, is there any specific part that you're more confused about than the others? So Marwa says I'm behind on classes for this week and planning on catching up today. Yeah, that's amazing. Do that. If you have problems, we are here to help during the office hours, so you can drop by as well. Well, you gotta say, um, the projects that we've seen so far, they've been really good. So keep up the good work, guys. It's nice that you guys are coming up with such good projects in such short time. So about the length or duration of how long we're gonna learn React, that is a little unsure because we do have a plan, but we're also focusing more on you guys based on your understandings, like how far you have understood. That's a very important factor to us. So yeah, we're kind of updating the timeline based on our lectures. So Notchla says I didn't sleep yesterday, stayed up all night working on the project. Yeah, I know how that's like. But yeah, practice is important. Okay, so um I can see if you've joined, so why don't I share my screen and begin. Okay. So Sanders says, since last month, we've been dreaming about HTML code projects. I'm not sure if that's a good or bad thing. That's good though, right? You're thinking of it in your sleep. Okay. So let's begin. Let me see if I have all the files that I need. All right, I think we are all set. Say public, was it? Yeah, I'm just getting all the files ready before I start. Okay, I think we are good. You're good to go. I believe you guys can see my screen. So, yeah, let's begin. Sorry about that. Okay, so far, let's see what it looks like. Then we can go ahead and make further changes. So I need to do an npm install. Oh no, I spelled it wrong. npm install. There you go. All right. Now all I need to do is npm start. There you go. Okay. So this is what we have so far, right? I think I've been trying random stuff, so it just shows 3, but ideally it should have 2. But the thing is, what this does is it kind of is sorting out based on the number of likes, so that's good. We have this. Okay, so before I begin with the coding part, I want to make sure you guys understand one thing. Like I was saying, the relationship between a parent component and a child component. So the thing is, we can pass information from the parent component to the child component, but we can't really pass information from the child component to the parent component. From what you've seen so far, for all these on changes, or even if you go to the node over here, we have, no, I don't think this one's it. Yeah, for all the values that our file needs, we're not directly getting them from, or we can't really, for example, when I'm in app.js, right? I am calling in notes over here, right? So we can't really pass values through this from the child to the node to the parent. So because of that, what we're doing, we're setting up functions and we're sending in values based on those functions. Does that make sense? I think we went through it briefly, but that is basically what it is. So from the child to the parent, we are not really able to send values. So we send in functions instead, and those functions get us the values. But on the other hand, parent to child, parent can directly pass values to the child, like we're doing over here, right? So for on clicks or anything over here, we're sending in the values itself. Anyone, any questions about this? Is my mic off? All right, perfect. So yeah, this is important. So I would suggest, like, if you guys don't understand this part, do ask me again. I'll explain again. No problem. But you should understand this part. It's very important. So that being said, we're going to see more examples of what I spoke about right now. So for those who joined late, I was just talking about the relationship between the parent component and the child component. So as you can see from the child components, we are not really passing in values. We're passing in the functions itself. And through the parent component, we are passing in the values through those functions. So the idea is parent components can pass in values, strings, arrays, or whatever, but child components cannot pass anything other than maybe a function. So we use functional components through child components in order to pass values. Or in other words, you could even say that parent component sends data, and child component sends events to parents, if that makes sense. So we can pass value from parent to first of all, it would be great if you could change your name to your actual registered name, because from what I can see, it says vCloud data. Okay, so that was the first thing. And secondly, to your questions, we can pass value to parent through functions. Yes, exactly. In simple terms, from parents to child components, we send data, and from child components to parents, we send events. Those events are in the face of functions, but in general, the idea is we're sending in events if you look at it. For example, you see over here, these on change handlers, these are all events, right? That we are changing inside this file. Over here, you can see we're changing all these events through these functions. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, we're gonna get more examples while doing the project, so let's not worry about that. But one thing that I want you guys to help me out with is, okay, give me suggestions on what's missing from this application. We have a sort button that sorts out based on likes. We can add information, but what's something that might help us with our project, or what might make this project even better? Importance, yes. I believe we are kind of doing that based on the likes. The number of likes it gets, it's more important, I guess. But we can definitely add a separate, like, for notes, we can add a separate field that kind of specifies its importance, but I feel like that would be kind of redundant since we already have the like version. So it's kind of sorting based on likes, but we can add that as well. One thing that catches my attention is over here, we are just writing in a note, but it doesn't really allow us to add titles or who wrote this note. For example, if multiple people are using the same application, um, and say you guys are collaborating with this application, you would ideally want to name that application, that particular node that you're uploading to yourself too. And you would also want to organize it with maybe a title and maybe search up nodes based on those titles. Delete some nodes, yeah, definitely. Categories, yeah, that also works. But for today, let's do one thing. Let's create a search option for this. And what else can we do? Yeah, let's add the search option and kind of make small changes here and there to make it a little more nice. Okay, we can do based on colors. Yeah, that we definitely can do. All right, the first thing that I would probably like to do is create a search option, right? Actually, no. In order to search, we need fields to search it with. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is change the form a little and add a title and author to it so that we have a more detailed note when it's getting uploaded, okay? So let's get to that. What I am gonna do is, so let's take a look at this. We need two more fields, two more input fields. Where are my input fields? They are in input.js. So ideally, I would want two more, right? So let me just copy this So I need a title. Let me change this to title. And let me change the name of this to handle update title. Again, I'm going to be creating the functions in the main application, in the main file, app.js. So for now, I'm just assigning the props, you could say, or events. Okay, so there's the title. One thing though, this will show me an error over here saying title is not defined because everything we get inside the return block over here, we're getting it from the props or the parameters over here for the function. In this case, let me write down title, comma, handle, update title. Just do this. Okay, so that's that. One thing else that we need is probably author, right? So let me put author after this and change this to, no, not capital, author, and handle update author. Okay. I'm going to do the same over here. Next line, author, comma, handle, update author that I've already written down over there. So now it should work just fine. So based on what I did, it's not going to make any changes yet because I only just changed the view. In order to make actual changes, we'll have to do something in app.js. So let's try to understand how we are essentially creating these form values, right? So the first thing that we know we need to do is to make this in a way like the base state. We wanna add some stuff to it to make it uniform throughout all the information. So I'm gonna write title. Let me write down first. And let me write down author as, I need to add author too, right? So let me add author as, I don't know, James Bond. Okay. So let me add a title for this as well. And let me write this as second. So this doesn't have to be first or second. I'm just writing this because I'm out of ideas for titles. Could write anything for this. And for this, let me write down, I don't know, Aldo. Okay, so it still won't show any difference, will it? No. Why? Because it's not assigned yet. We'll get back to that in a bit, but before that, let's try to make these input forms useful. It's odd how that's working, because that shouldn't. Okay, so let me do one thing. Feel like I have to hard reset the local storage. This is something that you could use, local storage.clear. What this does, it essentially does a hard reset for the local storage. So still taking inputs. Wow, okay. Anyways, so it just kind of hard resets the whole local storage thingy. And if you have any errors that are related to the local storage, this is something that you could do. All right, so one thing is we need to set up two event listeners for handle update title and handle update author, right? So we need to set up two event listeners for that. So why don't I just copy this? Just saving time over here. So we change what this says. Change title. Whenever title is selected, update input title. Now, one thing that you guys are probably asking, where is input title coming from? We have not really declared that yet, so let's do that. I'm just gonna create a new state over here for the title, and I'm gonna change this to title, this as title as well. Okay, now it's better. So that's for titles, and let's do one for authors. Let's put this as author and this as author as well. Okay, so the variables they are created, that's gonna store the values and all that. So let me change this. Update. What did I name that? Okay, let me just name this. Update text title. Okay. Now inside this, it should be getting the values and whatnot. Everything's okay. Set to change this to set input title. Okay. All right. So that's one. We need to make another for the authors. So I'm gonna change this to author update input author. So let's change this to text author and this to author as well. Okay. I think we're good. No, we are not. So for this, we have to add the things that we created right now inside the input, just to add our event listeners. So over here, I'm gonna set the title as input title, and in the next line over here, if you see, I wrote down handle update title, so that's what I'm gonna write. Handle update title, and inside this I'm gonna write down update text title. Are you guys with me so far? Anyone finding it difficult to follow? Should I slow down? Do let me know in the chat, okay? And okay, so for this now, I will change this to author and change this to author as well. But one thing, it's still handle update title, so I'm gonna have to change it to handle update author and handle text title to handle text author. Oh, for sure. So the functions that were just created should be somewhere over here. So we already had the ones for the text inputs and everything. These are kind of just getting the values from the form. So I did the same for the title over here and for author over here. It's essentially the same thing that we did for the other form.
The update text title, I think if you can correct the spelling, because you may run into issues later on.
Oh, okay, makes sense. Title. If I change that, I have to change this as well. Okay. Thanks for catching that. But yeah, these are essentially the functions that were created. All right, so we are getting the values. Okay, so let's see if it works. So let's first write down title, note, author, save. As you can see, it just shows the note. Why? Let's figure that out. So over here, I added all that stuff to the inputs, but I haven't necessarily changed the notes card over here, right? So for that, inside this, I have to make some changes as well. So for that, let's create more of these. So we right now have node.text. So we need a same div like this for title and author. So I'm going to copy that. Change this node.text. Should we keep this node.text or should we change it to node.title? What do you guys think? Title, right? Let's do that. Let's change this to title content. I'm going to do the same for author. I'm going to change this to author. And so what should the value be that I'm passing? Will it be node.text or something else? No. I already did the one for title. Now I'm doing author, right? So if you see over here, I'm essentially calling this. So over here, I have to change this to node.author. Does this make sense for everyone? Let's try it out. Node 1. Let's see, save. It's funny because it's not really changing anything.
There was another place where you needed to change. Go down. There was a spelling mistake that needed to be corrected.
Where? In
Further
app?
down. Yeah, I think probably over here where you were doing the assignment. 124. Oh no, 123. Title is assigned. This one.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, let's do that. Input title. I think I made a spelling mistake here as well. Oh, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a spelling mistake, but it was essentially taking the same value. So, um, so what's happening is it's essentially showing those, but nothing's coming out from this. Note and author. Yeah, so the issue isn't the card itself. The issue is our values, the values that we are getting or receiving. So I feel like there is a issue. But what? Set input authors. Good over here. Set input text. That's good. Set input title is also good. So that makes me wonder what the issue is. Set input title. Set input author. Everything seems just fine. Okay. One thing that I haven't done. So with these event listeners, the update text title, update text input, update text author, all this, what it's doing is it's taking the value from the form and just storing it. But nothing's actually updating it on button click. When I click this button, actually nothing different's happening. So for that, if you take a look at input.js, we're passing in the event handle add note. And inside app.js, handle add note has the function add note. So we also have to make changes inside this where we're essentially creating the new object, right? So let me just create title over here and I will call this input title. All right, comma, next line, author, input author. No, the wrong sign. Okay, there you go. Yeah, this should be good. It's creating the new array over here. So let's try it now. Notes 1, notes 5. There you go. Now it's coming up the way it should be. Okay, so that's good. We have our title, we have our note, we have our author as well. Before I get deep into the search part, I wanna be able to make some changes in the view as well. So in order to search something, we obviously need a search bar, which we don't have over here. And since it's not a repetitive component, I can just create it in app.js. Now, that being said, what do we add? So what I want to do is I want to create a similar button like this for the search. And when you click on that, the form comes up or the search bar comes up. So let's do that. Let me go back to VS Code. So now inside this, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna have to create a input tag and create a button that will deal with the search, and also I need something that refreshes the search. So let's do this. What I'm gonna do right now is right after this, I'm gonna write down input, and inside input, I should be closing it like this. Okay. So input's done. Let me set a value to this. For now, we don't have a value. So let me just put a placeholder sort of. Let me call this. I think I need to declare a variable first. Okay, before I do that, let me just create a variable so that later on when I'm using the search option, it's easier for me. So I'm gonna do the same. Let me call this input search. And in this, I'm gonna change this to input search as well. Okay. So let's go back to the code. I'm gonna write value as input search. Yeah, because we have to get the values from the form over here as well, right? Okay, it looks odd, but yeah, we need to get values from this as well. Right now it shows nothing because we didn't add anything to it. So, okay. So I added a value. Now I need to add an on change listener. So let me set on change to something like this. So I will need a update. Just like these, update text title, update text input, we would need a update search as well. So for that, let me create a new function over here that will be called update search. Whenever search, change search input search, sorry. So let me change this to update search input. All right, I'll change this to set input search. Okay, I think we are good, are we? No, we are not. It shows an error. Why? Because we haven't changed anything over here. Where was it? There. So I'm going to change this to update search input. It should work now, hopefully. Yep, we can type in stuff. So our on change listener is working. The next thing that we would probably need to add is buttons, right? So why not create not one, actually we need two. One that refreshes, one that does the search itself. So let's do that. For that, I'm gonna create a div. Since I will have two input tags, it's gonna be easier for me to design it. So inside this, I'm gonna create a button. Let's call this search. Similarly, next line, same thing, another button, but this is gonna refresh it. You get why I'm having two buttons over here? So one's gonna do the search itself and kind of display what we need to display, and refresh is gonna bring back everything else. So it's gonna display the whole, I would say, the landing page essentially. Right, so our UI is kind of set, but it's not really. We have to add something else as well. We need to add a button that will call that particular form or show that particular form. So just like this, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna Command C and instead of add, let me change this to search. For now, the on-click doesn't really bother me because it's not doing anything. But one thing that I need to change is the CSS. So just add circle itself, it's just gonna bring it over this. We don't want that. And also we need to check if it's imported. It is imported. So let me change this. I'm gonna change this to add circle 1. And I'm gonna go to app.css, find add circle. Okay, I have it here. So I'm just gonna copy, paste 1. And what I have to do is I'm gonna have to change these over here, the bottom dimensions. So it's 50 pixels for the height of the button itself and 20 as a bottom. So I need to add 50 to this and maybe 10 for extra measure. So let's do 80. There you go. It came up. So before it was underneath this, but now it came outside. So that's good. So all that being done, let's actually add functionality to the search. So if you go to app.js, we can see that inside this, I think yesterday Yaman already did like a sort nodes thing. So for search, we're gonna do a very similar process. We're gonna create a search nodes function and use that to essentially filter out what we need. And we are going to search using titles. One thing that might help though is adding hints over here. So let's do that. Let me go to Node and inside, not this actually. Was it this? I need to add CSS. Yeah, it's over here. So, but then again, this is where we, okay. So over here, I'm gonna add placeholders. So for the first one, I'm just gonna write down title. For the second one, I'm gonna write down note. For the third one, I'm gonna write down author. Let's see if it worked. There you go. But, okay, that's why. There you go. Title came up now, so that's good. All right, we don't need this. So now we're gonna add functionality to the search. Like I said, I'm gonna create a search function that's gonna essentially deal with all that. But before that, we need to figure out the steps. So what do we essentially have to do to create the search function itself? What does the search function have to do? So one thing that we need is, if you see the page, when we do search, what we have to do, we have to first check the entry with the title. If it matches, we are gonna have to display that. For that, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create a separate array that's gonna hold the search nodes. And later on, I'm gonna pass it through as the prop. And we're gonna use that for the rest of the files. But one thing that you have to notice is when I actually change the values, it changes the values of the entire local storage. So that's something that could be an issue. For that, we're gonna store the updated notes in a separate variable, and we're gonna use that later on the refresh page, on the refresh button. When we click on that, we're gonna pass in that note and it's gonna display on the web page. So let's begin. So first thing that we would probably need is, what do we need? We need a function, right? So let me go to app.js. So I'm gonna do something similar to this. So let me just copy the template for that. Search. Okay, search notes. Change this to searched notes. And I will change the whole idea for this as well. But do I need a global variable? Okay, so Let me get rid of all this actually. I don't need this. So for this, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the filter function. So the idea for using that is, so I create a variable that's gonna hold the searched data, right? And I'm gonna call in our notes the array of objects that holds all our information. And I'm gonna use the filter function for this. Now, the thing about the filter function is inside you have to call a function as well, right? So let me write down function. Okay. For that event, let me call this note. And there you go. The function is essentially created. So what do I want to return from this? From this, I wanted to return the filtered information based on our title. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna check if our note, which is our event over here in this case, the current note, if the current note title is equal to the input search. If that is equal, then we are gonna get back inside this variable the entire object for that particular title. Okay? Afterwards, what we have to do, we have to change this where we set the notes to our search data and load it in the local storage as well. Okay, that seems simple enough. But yes, we also have to add event listeners, right? So where are the buttons? The buttons are right here. Yes, so let me add some on-click listeners. So for search, what it's gonna do is it's gonna call the function that essentially is searched notes. So on click, it's gonna pass in or call this function from the previous parts of the code. All right, but there's one thing though, like, let me see if it works first. Let me create another with title. Title, note, JJ, author, Beckham. Save. So let me search with title. Let me see if this is working. Oh, there you go. It works. So it kind of filters out the whole thing based on our search, but there is literally no way to go back. Even if I do this, I can't go back because the local storage is storing all that inside it. So now comes the refresh button into play. So for this, I believe similarly, just like the searched version, we have to add a function for the previous notes, right? So let me do that. But one thing though, one thing that you guys should notice is when I declare a variable inside an event listener over here, that variable is not accessible anywhere else. So the issue with that is later on, when I'm trying to call the stored note somewhere, I wouldn't be able to do that. Say if I need to call the stored notes for or the previous notes for this button. Where did it go? Here. I wouldn't be able to call that. So likely what I will need is I will need another variable that is essentially holding the previous notes. So for that, I'm gonna do the same, just like this. I don't know why my messages came up for some reason. Okay, all right, what was I doing? I was doing this. So I'm gonna create a variable for previous functions. So I'm gonna call this previous note, prev note. Let's call it that. And over here, I'm gonna change this to set. It's already set, so I'm just gonna write prev note. Are you guys with me so far? I feel like it's been very quiet. Do you guys have any questions or comments so far? Anyone? Yeah, I'll take a pause over here for a bit. Honestly, I feel like it's yeah, I'll show you guys the refresh part later. But let me kind of do a short recap on what I did, okay? So, um, the first thing that I did is I added the title and author name over here so that I can use it for maybe search purposes or use that to make our note a little more detailed. Because sometimes when multiple people are using the same application, you would want their name on the note they're changing or the article that they're writing, what essentially whatever new note they're adding. So you might want to add author name to that. And title name is always good. That way you could just sort it out based on the titles, or if you are looking for specific information, you can just go by the title. So the reason for that is, so the reason behind adding all those things is this. Now, if I go back to the code, if you see, I created variables for the titles and author. I used the event listener over here to grab the information from the forms using the update text title and update text author. What I'm doing later on is I'm setting up the on changes for each of those input forms. And whenever there's a change, we detect it and we store it. And one thing that we had to do is add some stuff to the function add node. Why? Because what handle add node does, it essentially makes all the changes when you click on this button, right? So in order to do that, I have to show the system that the new changes are there. So the add node function doesn't really know that changes exist outside it. So we have to make changes inside it to show that the new informations exist. So that's what I did. I kind of just stored them in the new object and passed it on. Doing so, we get our cards over here. Now, that was pretty much the first part. I hope everyone kind of understood what I did over there. But next, I wanted to create a search option. For that, first of all, I needed a search form and two buttons. Why two buttons? One's gonna search and show the searched options. Another is gonna refresh and show me everything that I had before. Okay, so I didn't really get to the refresh part yet, but I did finish up with the search part. We can take a look at that. So if we take a look at the search function, what we're essentially doing over here is we're using filter to check the objects based on their title. So over here, I'm checking the object title with the input search variable, which is essentially holding the value that the user has entered to search. So if they match, the filter function, it's gonna take in every single object that matches this description. So once that's done, it's gonna get stored in search data, and I'm passing search data into set notes. So that will set the value of notes to whatever search data holds, essentially our filtered string or filtered array of objects. Then we are just using local storage to store it. Yeah, that's basically it for the function. But later on, if you see inside the button for on click, I'm sending in the function search node. So every time the button is clicked, it's gonna run this function over here and filter out whatever is there. Okay. But yeah, that's pretty much it for what I've done so far. Um, confused, trying to understand, understood. Where are we now? You mean the filter part as in like the searched part, right? Yeah, it's over here, this function, the search nodes. This is essentially where we're doing all the searches. Like I said, I think I just explained this part. So what it's doing is it's using the filter function to check if the title is equal to what the user input. And if they match, the search data is going to hold each and every object that kind of fulfills that criteria. And later on, we're just setting notes to that search data value and storing it in local storage. Later on, we're just calling the search notes function over here as an on-click listener, and it's doing its job.
So the return that you're doing note.title is equal to input search. So that is going to return 1 or 0. Is that a Boolean value that will be returned? Yes or no?
Yes, essentially, it returns yes, a true or false, and if it's true, then it just stores it. This is essentially how just it's like dot map. It I think we covered all those functions, the callback functions over there. So it's similar, it's the exact same idea, but this one does something different, like it's just filtering out the objects. Why don't I let you guys kind of soak that in for a bit? Let's go on our 10-minute break. Let's come back and take a look at the rest, okay? All right, so stop sharing over here, and I will see you guys in 10 minutes. All right, we are back. So now we will be working on the refresh button. Let me share my screen. Okay. So previously before the break, I created these variables for previous note. Now I am gonna create a function for this previous note. So yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna go down back to where I used this. Just copy the template. I'm gonna take off this, change this to previous notes. Changing this. To previous notes. And I need to get rid of this. I don't need this. Okay, so one thing. Before I actually set anything into this previous notes function, one thing I have to make sure the priv note variable actually holds the previous notes. And for that, I am going to do it in the add note function. So every time I add a note, it's just gonna store that same note in previous notes as well, so that if I need it later on, I can just call that variable and send it to whichever function or whichever event listener I need. So yeah, I am gonna go to the add notes function over here. And inside this, I'm gonna change priv notes to the updated array. So after notes, I'm just gonna do this, set priv note, and set this to the updated array. Okay, let me add a comment to this. Saving previous notes. Okay, so that's done. Now let's get back to the function where I was declaring the previous notes inside this. Okay, so for this, what I have to do is there's nothing much to do honestly over here. I'm just gonna set the notes to that variable, previous notes, and do the same over here. All right, so let's see. Obviously it doesn't work now. Just do a refresh for the whole system, whole local storage dot clear. Okay, so everything's refreshed. I don't need this here anymore. I'm gonna change that. And why not add items? So let me say JS. Inside the node, let's just write maybe oops. Author, I'm gonna write this name. Save, it's there. Refresh, let's change the color to, I don't know, maybe purple. For this, okay, let me maybe set this to, what can I write? Arrays, save. So, okay, no. Did not work because I pressed that early. But for that not working, this tells me that there's a chance a refresh button is not working either. Oh, that's because I didn't add an on-click listener to this. So let me write on-click and set this to previous notes. So, okay, I'll do the same again. JS. Let's write down loops. My name. Save. I'm gonna add more stuff. Let me add arrays. Say, change the color to purple. Save it. Now let me search up JS. Okay, so that works. Let me hit refresh. Everything comes back. So our refresh function is working as well. Are you guys clear about what I did so far? Of how the search function is actually working? Anyone with any questions? Yes, if I press on search without anything, it's going to return nothing because it's an empty string. That we can add a sort of validation later on, just so that the search bar doesn't get sent in empty. But for now, since it doesn't have any validation, it's gonna return an empty string, so it's gonna come up with nothing. Let's try that honestly. Yeah, it just gets blank. All right, if that's clear, then let's have some fun with the CSS. What I wanna do is, can you make a copy of node state on search buttons, then send it to previous? I'm not sure I understand what you mean. Let me, can we make?
Because like you updated the notes in the search button and the search function on the JS file.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just update it with the searched note, right?
Yeah.
Before we update it, we can just make a copy and save it in previous and just keep it there. Then I can call it back in the previous.
Yeah, I think we can do that as well with states. Yeah, but essentially if you look at it, that's what I'm doing. I'm just creating a different state for the previous functions over here. If you take a look over here, I'm just creating a different state for the previous node and just storing it there and calling it. I'm
Like you
essentially
have
doing
the
this.
same copy now, both on the previous and on the note.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So whatever the new array of objects would be, it's gonna get saved as the previous nodes. All right, so like I said, let's have some fun with the CSS now. So we have a sort button over here. Let's not have a random button floating around and just add something to this. So the idea is I'm gonna add a more option over here. If you click that, then these buttons are gonna show up and you can use them just the way you want. How does refresh section work? Oh, so I'm just storing. So if you see an add notes, but before that, look at this. I have a state declared over here, a use state for previous node, and I am storing the updated array inside that. So essentially it's going to store whole the whole array up to the recent function, up to the recent objects. So well, even if I change the notes, the previous note is going to be there. So if I have to refer back to it, I can just use it. So that's what I did in the previous notes function. I just set the notes to the previous note value. And in the button over here, I'm just calling that function. It's like backup storage, you're correct. It's like backup. Because since we are changing the main notes over here, I'm pretty sure there's probably other ways you could do that. But since I'm changing the notes state itself, or the notes variable itself, I have to have a backup so that I can revert back to it, right? Okay, so that's that. About the sorting now, right? So let me create a button over here. But before that, I need to import something. Let me do this. React icons. Since I'm doing descending, okay, I think this is nice. Let me just copy this. But before I do that, before I set that icon as a value, I have to import it as well. So why not do this? Command C. I'm gonna change this to the name I copied. Nope, that's not it. Okay. One thing that you have to see over here, the extension is HI. So React icons.io will not work for this. I have to use React icons HI. That being said, now what we can do is we can add it over here. So why not copy this, paste this, change this to what I want. I have to change the CSS as well to make so that it doesn't get covered with the previous buttons or the icons. It's not really a button, to be honest. Okay, so let's go to app.css. I'm gonna do this again. Command C, V. So for the previous one, if you see, it was 20 pixels before. I added about like 60 pixels, which is like the height of the icon itself and 10 pixel sort of margin, you could say. So over here, I'm gonna add the same 60 to this. I'm gonna make this 140. And let's see what it is. Okay. I thought it changed that, it didn't. Oh, makes sense too. And what was the name of the, oh, it's high sort descending. So over here, I'm gonna change it to, there you go. Okay. I don't know why it comes up like that, but we'll take a look into that. It's probably because the state. Anyways, so that's there. So let's see what this button is essentially doing. Where is that button? So yeah, it's just doing sort notes. I don't need this. I'm gonna get rid of this. And inside this, on the on-click listener, I'm just gonna write down sort notes. So on-click, it's gonna call the function on-click. So it's gonna call the function sort notes. So let me try it. Okay, 4, 2, 3. Yeah, it works. So essentially I just brought this button over here. Okay, that's good. Something else that we probably might want to do. Yeah. So for these, as you can see, this should only work for the search, but it is working for everything else other than that. But let me first bring in all the icons I want, because I also want a more icon. So for that, which icon should I think this should have another icon like that? More. Command C. More. No. There you go. But chances are high it's not going to show. So likely what we have to do is let's go back to CSS. I'm going to call this 3. Let it be. And I'm going to increase the height for everything by 60 pixels because like I said, 50 is the height and 10 pixels is just for additional padding. So let me make this 200. No. Let me make this 140. And let me make this 80. Let's see. Oh, that's because it should work now. Oh, there you go. So we have all the buttons I need over here. So now the idea is when I click on this, I want these to hide and the same for this. So let me first add the functionality for the search. So I will go back to app.js and let me create. So like show, let me create another one for set show, like another instance or another variable. So I'm going to copy this. So I'm going to set this as set show 2 and this is set show 2. So that's false right now. One thing that I probably want to do is, how do I go about this? So when I click on this, everything else is going to hide, right? So for show, interesting. Let me do this. I'm going to copy this whole block and create the same one again. But this time, instead of input, what I'm planning on doing is putting in these. So let me add brackets. Copy. Actually, do that. Oh, okay. It doesn't let me. I have to do it one by one. So I'm going to do the same thing over here again. Command V. No. A lot of red lines. Get rid of this. And get rid of this. And add a bracket over here. Should work. Let me see. Something's wrong. Oh, I don't need that. I don't need that either. Still not working. I'm curious, what did I do wrong? The input bars there. Show is false. Actually, so for this, let me call this show 2. Change this to show 2 as well. It's funny how the whole thing is changing based on that. Okay, that's because the search button isn't working properly. Let me add another instance for this. Call this 3. Change this. Change this. So for this, let me call this show 3 because it's gonna be based on the button over there. Where's my search bar? Oh, okay, I see what's wrong. All right. My bad. I'm gonna change this to show 2 because this is gonna be the input. Okay. So this is my adding new note part. For this, if you see, for the button add, I'm changing in set show 2. So let's do that. Let's check with set show 2. And for these, let's check with set show 3. But that doesn't really help me with my tags. Oh, okay. That's why. So for this, I would likely need 3 of them to check. 3 different instances for 3 different buttons, I guess. So let me do show. And let's just copy these one by one. Command X, Command V. And I'm gonna take this, change it to this. I'm gonna take this, change it to this. Okay, so let's go back to the website. Oh, there you go, it's hidden now. Okay, so it works. But one thing though, this doesn't look very good. So I'm likely gonna have to change that. So inside the search, why don't I put the whole thing inside a div? Command palette, div. Did it work? No, it did not. Oh, that's because it used the wrong one. Div, okay. So let me call this class name covered search. So let me go back to app.css So for the previous hidden div, this is what I did. Now, let me create a for hovered search. Is that what I named it? Yep. So inside, it's gonna be pretty much the same thing, except I have to just change the position to absolute, just so that I can move it around. Let me put a bottom of, okay, so for bottom, go to app.js for these. So that should be hovering around the search button. So for this, it's add circle 1. Let me see the dimensions I've set for the search button. So it's 50, so it's 140 as bottom and 20 as right. Okay. So I would want it a little bit higher than 140 then. I guess I'm gonna put in 150. And for right, it's gonna stay 20. So let's see. When I do this, it's way too high. So let me just put it down to what? Let me eyeball it, 90. Okay, this seems fair. This is acceptable. There you go. All right, looks pretty put together, right? Are you guys with me so far about what I did? Is that everyone? I need everyone to answer, please. Good. So the idea for creating this whole hovering button element is it's not a button really, but it's more like a component, like just an icon, to be honest. So the idea behind this is usually we want all our navigation to be done in one place. For that, most cases we have a navigation bar where we have all the options, whether if you want to add something, whether we want to search something. But since we wanted to go for like a nav barless project over here, we went for this hovering button idea. So if ever you're going for a project where you don't want to really create a nav bar, or a nav bar isn't really necessary or doesn't really look that nice, this is a very good option. Gives it a much cleaner look. I think that's about it for these. Yeah, let me add some more stuff. Let me say HTML. Let me write down a random tag, maybe body part, body component. For author, I'll write down this name as well. Let me change the color to purple again. There it appears. Okay, so that's gone. Let me search up using JS. Everything else goes. I refresh. You see, this is still ordered over here. I refresh, everything comes back. Those are also ordered. How will this look on your phone? Let's see. So the idea is, most cases it should look something like this. We just keep on adding to it. But one thing we have to do is set these to a display fixed. I think that should work. Yeah, I think we need to do that. Let me see. I don't even know if it's gonna work for this because display fixed usually needs a proper div for that. Might have to do it separately, but let's see. So for the buttons, let me put all of this. Okay, all the buttons are here. So it's inside hidden div, I guess. All right, so let's go back. Okay. What's the CSS for exact of? Mm, I wonder. Yeah, I'm just looking into like a viable component, like a viable CSS for this. I mean, I already have position absolute, so I can't really. Oh no, this should work. Let me to inspect. Yeah, it's not really sticking to the end of the viewport for some reason. Yeah, maybe this is something we'll take a look into later to fix the position of this whole div. Wonder. This is make it look. No, display fixed isn't really working. Yeah, we'll take a look into that later. But essentially, it's pretty responsive. It's just one thing that we need to work on is probably the position of the hovering buttons. That's something we probably need to work on with the CSS. We can do that separately with media queries, so that's not a problem. But other than that, this is a very basic functionality of our app. Now, we are probably going to add some more information or some more components to this. So do take a look at it in the next lectures. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So is today's lecture clear for you guys? Any comments or questions that you guys have? Anyone? So in summary today, we basically just created the search option. In order for us to do that, we had to add our title, our author name, and we search based on the title, right? So if I go back to the code, in app.js, you'll see I created states and variables for all the different inputs that are coming in and the searches. And I kind of updated the inputs into those variables using these event listeners over here. So yeah, I have search input, text title, text input. All these are the event listeners that are essentially taking the values from the form and saving it in the variables. Over here, we're sending in a new object every time we're adding it. And through this, we're showing the card. For the search option, if you see, we have it over here, I believe. Yeah. So essentially, I'm just storing, I'm using the filter option to create a function that kind of checks if the node title is equal to the input of the user. And then I store it in this variable over here called search data and essentially set notes into that. But that's for the search part. But in order to revert back to the previous option, I already have a variable previous note, which is being assigned every time a new, where's that note? Every time a new note is added. So every time a new note is added, previous note gets the updated note and stores it as a backup. So for refresh, I'm just setting the notes to the previous note to revert back to the old version and show everything there is. After that, I just kind of sort of added some CSS. I added a few icons. I changed the sorting button into the hovering button list over here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. But the main idea is that I want you guys to understand how the relationships are working between the parent components and the child components, that we're sending in events to the parent, and the parent in turn is sending us data through those events. That was the main purpose of today's lecture, like this lecture particularly. Hope that part's clear for you guys. And I mean, yeah, if you're like a little behind on your lectures, this might seem a little overwhelming, but don't worry about that. Once you get covered up or get caught up with the lectures, this is gonna seem much easier. And also, like, practice is key. Ideally, we do want you guys to create these applications on your own. So doing that bit by bit will kind of bring up problems as well. You'll face difficulties in some parts, and that's the only way to learn, to be honest, practicing. So once you practice, you get stuck, you learn why you get stuck, and you solve that problem. Once you solve that problem, you always remember that. So that is something that you guys should do, practice. Waka says, can we create search.js and use a hook to search? This way, all the search code will be separated and easy to understand. Yeah, you could do that, but I did it in one file because honestly, I don't need a separate component for search. I don't need a separate file. I can just do it in one, because the search option, it's essentially just using one function. It's not really doing a lot. It's just this, where did it go? Searched notes function. This is the main thing. This is what's creating the search option essentially. just for this one function, there's no point in creating another file. I can just do it here because that way I have the variables ready for me and I could just use them to filter it out. Usually when there are repetitive components, for example, the notes itself, it's better to have separate functions or separate files, separate components. But if it's like just one single part that's not repetitive, it's just gonna be in one page, then there's no point in like creating a different function for that. Just creates confusion. But yeah, hope you guys understood that. If you're still confused, do take a look at the lecture videos. If you have questions, definitely ask us. But yeah, while checking out the videos, if you are stuck anywhere, we are there in the office hours. You can definitely drop by and ask us. We're happy to help. So that kind of concludes today's lecture. Let me quickly add these to the GitHub. I'll commit these. So I'll do git add. Oh, actually, no, clear. So I have to create a branch first. Which lecture is this? What's the lecture number? Let me check it out real quick. Should be lecture 64 if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's lecture 64. So let me create a separate branch and first see where I am. Get status. No, okay, it's still holding that commit for me. I don't want that. New terminal. Get status. Okay, let me just create a new branch. Git checkout branch, and over here, let me write down lecture 64. So let me check git status now. Okay, so I do git add again. Let me try. I don't think I need to do git add again. It's already added. But just for the sake of it, then I'm gonna do a git commit. Commit message. So what did I add? I added search function added. Title and author added. Changed CSS. Okay, so that's done. And let me just git push origin lecture 64. Just check it before I do it. It should be there. Yep, it's there. All right. So yeah, that kind of sums up today's class. Hope you guys understood everything. Let's go on a 10-minute break and come back for the lab, all right? All right, we are back for the lab. So, as per usual, we will be having a quiz at the end of the day. It'll be published in the next lab, I believe. So for now, I am putting down the links to the material in the chat. You guys can take a look at it and can definitely work on your previous assignments as well and ask questions. So, yeah.
Can you see the screen? Oh, hold on.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
All right, cool. So our group project, and we called it the mini game project because there's a lot of mini games in there. And our team is Ezra, Abdul, Gufran, and Tir. And we will talk about our design choices, the functionality, and the collaboration. I could tell you overall, we have a couple members that have graphic design sort of backgrounds, and they determined it'll be kind of a childlike theme since it's childlike games. So they picked certain colors to go with that, and we all tried to match. So we're going to go to each person's game individually, and they could describe what they've done. So we'll start with Esra, and I will unshare here. Not new share. Stop share.
Thank you, Tir. And now I'm gonna share my screen. So my name is Isra, and my role in the project specifically was designing our prototype. With the help of Ghufran, we decided on the colors, and I designed the background to match our mini game theme. I designed the cards too. It's not sitting up here. It's in the live one, which I'm gonna show in a bit. I designed the login to be a symbol, user-friendly for the users, and also the background. Now I'm gonna show you the whole, the live one for the login. It's not functional right now, but we will do it later. I designed the background too, and the colors. And my specific rule was to design and develop my tic-tac-toe game. So our team decided to everyone to choose their design colors. So mine was these colors to make the user fun and interacted with it. So as you see, it's a simple one. They can just, the first player is the X one, and the next one is the O turns, and they can restart it, and it is responsive. And I'm gonna show you the home page. I designed the cards. To be like this. Oh, I forgot to show you to the dark theme for my page too. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
And next, we're going to have Abdul show his game.
Hello, everyone. Okay, I'll start by sharing screen. And then before I jump into live, I assign myself to do the prototype for the site, the file structure, and some other task. I asked to do them myself in order to meet some certain requirement I was looking for. So I designed the file structure to have like more of a general files that target like the common feature that run throughout the site, and then more of a specific file that targets more specific features to individual pages. And I made sure to find a way that the code will not interfere with each other, and they're not gonna overwrite each other. So like in general, the file structure for the entire site, it is being programmed at the root level. And we use the JavaScript, HTML, and the main HTML, the main CSS, and the main script file. So this feature is just applied for the entire site. And I thought of designing the page individually, and each page has its own files. So that's going to give the ability for developers to have their own touch without dedicating, like the features of backgrounds, colors, font size, whatever. So I just wanted to give that feature for individual to work on the way they like. As well as I will jump into the page itself. Okay. So I have worked on programming and design the footer, the header and the footer, along as with the drop-down menu. The feature I add for these in two part of the page throughout the site. That's like the footer, it's sticky, so it's stick at the bottom. And for the header, it has a theme toggle that again toggles like the entire site, like on a home page, or like let's say like in the general files. As well as I designed the hangman page. So for the hangman page, I made sure to have simple, easy understanding user interface. I wanted to have like some like visual, like presentation of the game, description of the game. I have a description here, and that's like a simple description. It's meant to be for the mobile view, because on a mobile view it's like less space. So I just like to give the users like the flexibility to start play right away rather than read the entire thing here. So I designed this using like plain HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and I had to do some research and get myself exposed into new technology that was not being taught in this course. So I used Canvas. I educated myself about it and how to use it and connect it to the JavaScript. In my game, I also added a feature. The game on a play, like when you start playing, there is an effect sound that start directly when you start playing the game, and would keep playing until you play again or refresh the page, then stop playing. You could see I got a hint to show hint for the game. I got play again futures and I got clue. So basically it goes that way. And start, keep going, right? If you go on hints, show some hints. Yeah, I don't know if the sound was showing in the background, but there is sound over there. Yeah, I think I'm down for now. If there is any specific question, we could get back to it later on.
And next, I believe, should be Gufran.
Yeah, thank you. Hello everyone. I will share my screen to show the part that I have worked on. Actually, we collaborate through GitHub, and we made our like main branch as a protected, so none of us can push his work without a review of at least one of the other teammates. So that's why we didn't want to mess our codes. We created like, you know, many branches with each one of us names. So everyone should push their works to their like targeted branch. We have also made a lot of comments. We have 140 comments, and also we have done 27 deployment. We actually thinking to enhance our work in future by doing all of our tasks as an issues and creating branches for each issue. But for now, I think we did great because, you know, it was our first time to collaborate through GitHub. Then moving to my to the website, I have worked on the cards. I developed them. I tried to make just a simple effect since the website is for kids and it works for both themes. It's also responsive, as you can see here. Yeah, it's also for mobile version. This is the mobile version. And it navigates for each game. I worked also on the nav bar, the responsiveness of the nav bar, and it's also responsive, as you can see here. What else I have done? I also worked on my rock, paper, scissors game. I try to make it as simple as I can and to keep the design of the website. The description it has a button to click, and they made a small description. Since it's just a simple game, it doesn't have a lot of rules or any other things, and everyone knows this game. By clicking here, it will start working and it will move a little bit. Here is I have actually two places to display the game status. Here it shows who wins, whether the computer, the user, or it's a tie. And here you can find the scores for the computer or for the person who's playing. And whenever the person get done or want to restart, it easily can be restarted from here or play again. And also I have a back button which will take you to the private page that you were in. So whenever you will be, it will get you back. And also it's responsive, as you can see here. Yeah, it worked for both computer and mobile version. Yeah, and that's all.
Finally, there's me, Tier. I worked on the blackjack game. For Socialist challenges, I would say everything was challenging for me, especially the CSS, though. I had issues with that, and actually the GitHub uploading and downloading. Luckily, Abdul helped me quite a bit through that to catch me up to date. But to play the game, I really liked Gufran's idea of hiding the description and not hiding it, although it doesn't look so great when you do that, but tells you how to play the game. Pick a number between 1 and 5. Originally, I had a drop-down list for it for the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I don't like the way it looked. But similar to what someone else presented, having both at the same time did not seem to work. So I chose just this one. And at least with CSS, I got hovers. So you could pick numbers, it's adding them all up. And most of the time you're gonna guaranteed to lose here because 1 is the lowest we could pick, and the computer's gonna pick 1 to 5. So I lost. For themes, I actually, another struggle I had is this is a background, and I really should have somehow made it just the background of this one little flex element, but it's the entire page background. And this is supposed to be translucent or transparent, but it wasn't. So now I just swap from a dark background to a light background. It's not as responsive as I want. And that's part of the reason I did game description as a button, because I just didn't like the way it looked. And I did not honestly like the way these parts are not matching with the background, because when I first made it, I just had it as a giant screen and I kind of forgot about the mobile stuff. And for functionality, it's really only now I realized that a redo or a new game button would have been awesome, because whenever I just practiced, I just played it once to check things and then I refresh and make code changes. I also did the contact us page. It's got light and dark themes. These are just random kind of names. If you don't put a real address on there, it's supposed to, where's my mouse? Hold on. At somethingalphanumeric.com or .something alphanumeric, I believe. And then it says game has been received. So that is pretty much what I have done. And I'm going to stop my screen sharing. Fix my mouse.
Thank you so much, guys. Now we'll leave it to instructor if they have any specific question to ask.